Okay, imagine this. A state government, all set for a massive celebration. I mean, speeches written, confetti practically loaded, ready for this big political win. But then, an urgent call comes in. September 10th, 2025. And for the Indian state of Andhra Pradesh, everything changes. We're diving into a really fascinating story today about that exact moment, a moment that forces this profound choice. Do you stick with the political milestones, or do you put people first?
It's such a compelling narrative, isn't it? What's really striking is just how fast it all happened. One minute it's all about political festivities, the next it's this desperate, urgent scramble to save lives. So today, yeah, we're digging into the details of this crisis, how a government's focus snapped right onto its citizens, far away, caught in a country suddenly thrown into, well, chaos. And we've got some incredible specifics, the where, the when, and those critical, rapid decisions that unfolded.
Right. So let's set the scene. We're talking about Nepal, early September 2025. Stunning landscape, sure. But that wasn't the story. This was about discontent, simmering for a long time, finally boiling over. Yeah, widespread protests, mostly young people, Gen Z, as we call them, who were just completely fed up. Think about it. Finding a job feels impossible. Corruption seems, well, everywhere. And then the government shuts down your main way to connect and complain online. That was the spark, really.
And it wasn't just a small group protesting. This was like a societal breaking point. Thousands marching in Kathmandu, the capital. And these weren't peaceful marches for long, no. They turned violent incredibly quickly. We saw reports, confirmed reports of clashes with police. Parts of the parliament building itself were actually set on fire. Things got so bad they imposed a nationwide curfew. The Nepal army even had to issue warnings against vandalism. And tragically, in just one day of violence, at least 19 people lost their lives. The pressure just built and built until Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli had to resign. It's a really stark reminder, isn't it, how issues like unemployment, what was it, nearly 5,000 young Nepalis leaving daily to find work abroad, and these Nepo kids scandals, they can just destabilize everything.
That's an incredibly volatile situation. So
Yeah.
how does this chaos in Nepal directly impact Andhra Pradesh back in India? You mentioned the connection.
Right.
That border's really porous, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's incredible, really. Over 1,700 kilometers of open border between India and Nepal. No visas needed. So there's this constant flow of people for tourism, business, but also very significantly for religious pilgrimages. You take the Pashupatinath Temple in Kathmandu, for example. It's hugely sacred, draws devotees from all over, including a really large number from Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, Telugu-speaking regions. Telugu, you're talking about maybe 90 million speakers, a community with really strong cultural bonds, and definitely a history of travel, especially for faith. So that open border, those deep ties, that's exactly why, when the chaos erupted, hundreds of Indians, especially Telugu speakers, suddenly found themselves stranded.
Right. So amidst all this turmoil, Andhra Pradesh starts getting these distress calls. How many people were we talking about initially? What was the scale of the problem they suddenly faced?
Well, the alarm bells really started ringing loudly in Andhra Pradesh when they confirmed 187 of their own Telugu citizens were trapped in different parts of Nepal. Some early reports, as families were frantically calling in, even suggested the number might be higher, maybe around 215. And these weren't like seasoned trekkers ready for anything. These were ordinary families, maybe on a pilgrimage they'd saved up for. Suddenly, they're just huddled in hotels, maybe shelters, cut off by curfews, roadblocks, no flights, just stranded. It really hits home, doesn't it? The human cost when things like this happen. Ordinary people caught completely off guard, far from home.
And this is where Lokesh steps into the picture, and the story takes that dramatic turn. He's the Minister for Real-Time Governance, RTG, IT, Human Resources. Quite a portfolio, known for being tech-savvy. And September 10th, 2025, that specific day, was meant to be this huge celebration for the ruling NDA coalition, right? The super hit promises event in Anantapur. But he didn't go. He completely pivoted.
He did. And you really have to appreciate the weight of that decision. These Super Six promises, they weren't just minor policies. They were major election commitments. Things like free bus travel for women, financial aid, creating jobs for young people. Huge deals. The celebration in Anantapur was meant to be a massive PR moment, a real show of success for the government, political optics. Yet Lokesh, he's got this Stanford MBA, known for his focus on tech and data. He put out a statement, I think it was on X, saying his priority was the reports of these 187 plus Telugu citizens stranded. So he immediately shifted focus. Headed straight for the RTG Center in Vijayawada to coordinate the rescue, citizen safety first, celebration second, or rather, not at all. It's a powerful statement on leadership. I do wonder, though, was there any political fallout, any pushback for skipping such a big event?
That's a really good question, and it definitely underscores the pressure he must have been under. But okay, the decision was made. What happened next? What did coordinating from the RTG Center actually look like? I imagine it became, well, a hive of activity.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't just talk. It was immediate action. Lokesh went straight to the RTG Center in Vijayawada, which is the state's administrative nerve center, and they quickly set up what they called a war room. Not like in the movies, maybe, but a high-tech command center, yeah. Real-time data coming in, tracking the situation in Nepal as it unfolded. And crucially, they set up practical things. A dedicated call center, a WhatsApp helpline. Can you imagine the relief for those families back home? Finally having a number to call, a message they could send just to get some information about their loved ones. That direct line is everything in a crisis.
Those practical steps, yeah, they make such a difference. It shows the system actually working, moving fast. How did this RTG war room then connect with the bigger picture, like the Indian embassy in Nepal?
Right, so the team at the RTG Center wasn't working in isolation. They were plugged in, reviewing the situation constantly, coordinating directly with the central government agencies in New Delhi, and, critically, with the Indian embassy in Kathmandu. They alerted the Indian ambassador, Naveen Srivastava, straight away. He was pushing for evacuations, for safety measures on the ground there. It really paints a picture of a pretty well-oiled machine designed to adapt quickly under pressure, putting all that governance infrastructure to a very human test. Of course, even with the best setup, dealing with chaos in another country, the logistics, the diplomacy, that must have been incredibly challenging.
No doubt. So with this effort kicking into gear, did they have a clear idea of where these 187 plus people actually were in Nepal? Were they all together or scattered?
They were scattered, which definitely complicates things. The reports pinpointed several locations. In Bafal, which is a Kathmandu suburb, there were 27 people sheltering together. Someone named Sridhara Charulu was reportedly looking after them, maybe a community leader who stepped up. Then way out west, near the Tibetan border, is Simikot, a remote place. 12 individuals were located there with someone called Kari Appa Rao. That area is a starting point for the Mount Kailash pilgrimage, so it strongly suggests these were religious travelers caught out.
Right, pilgrims.
And near the Pashupatinath temple itself, in Kathmandu at the Mahadev Hotel, there was a group of 55 with a person named Vijaya. Again, that location screams pilgrimage. And the largest group, 90 people, were found in Pingalistan, Gashila. That's another area in Kathmandu known for its religious sites, cow shelters.
So mostly pilgrims, it sounds like.
It seems that way, predominantly. These places, usually associated with peace and spirituality, suddenly became these points of isolation and fear. Roads blocked, airports chaotic, the curfew. Just moving around was dangerous. You try to picture it, right? Elderly folks who saved for this trip may be rationing food, young couples, maybe their honeymoon turned into a nightmare. Families back in Andhra Pradesh just glued to their phones, praying. It's more than just numbers on a list.
Absolutely, it makes it very real. And thinking about Andhra Pradesh's response, you mentioned the RTG systems. Chief Minister Naidu has invested heavily in this, using AI, data analytics for everything from managing disasters to delivering services. So this Nepal crisis was, in a way, a major real-world test for that entire approach, wasn't it? How did that tech translate into helping these specific people? How does this fit into India's wider experience with evacuations?
It's true. India does have quite a history here. We saw huge efforts during the Ukraine crisis in 2022, Yemen back in 2015. And state governments, like Andhra Pradesh, they play such a vital role. Why? Because they know their people, the language, the culture, the specific anxieties and needs. So in this Nepal situation, the RTG system wasn't just abstract tech. It allowed them to gather information fast, set up those communication channels quickly, coordinate with different agencies, essentially turning data streams into concrete rescue plans. That focus on using tech for citizen well-being, that's what really stands out here. But it also makes you think, doesn't it? Why does Nepal seem to face these internal crises so often?
It's a really important question. The countries are so close, geographically, economically. India's Nepal's biggest trading partner, huge cross-border movement. Yet Nepal struggles internally. Over 30 governments since 1990? Persistent economic problems. It seems to frequently spill over.
Exactly. And those Gen Z protests we talked about earlier, that's part of a bigger global picture. You know, young people rising up against inequality, poor governance. We're seeing it from Bangladesh to Kenya. And ironically, in Nepal, when the government tried to clamp down by blocking social media, trying to stop misinformation, it kind of backfired. It cut off reliable news, probably fueled more rumors, made people angrier, and actually pushed protesters offline onto the streets together before they eventually restored it. So when Lokesh said the safety of Telugu citizens remains the state's top priority, it really resonates beyond just this one incident. It's about that fundamental idea. Governments are there to protect their people, not just hold rallies. This crisis really put that principle to the test.
This has been a really powerful deep dive, looking at that single day, September 10th, 2025, and how an entire state apparatus pivoted. It's not just a rescue story, is it? It's
Yeah.
about leadership, priorities, resilience. It shows how quick, decisive action, especially when it's backed by smart technology and, frankly, empathy, can make a life or death difference.
Absolutely. And what really stays with you is that idea. When leaders choose compassion over, well, confetti and celebration, they build something much more lasting. They build trust. As hopefully all these people get brought home safely, this whole episode becomes more than just a news event. It's a lesson, really, in that bond between people and the state, especially when things get tough.
Definitely leaves you thinking. What does it actually take for a society to get to a point where its young people feel they have no choice but to protest so dramatically, even forcing a government out? And on the other side, how does a crisis like this, where one state government steps up so decisively for its citizens in another country, maybe change how we think about borders, responsibility, and just being part of a wider community in this connected world? Something to mull over, perhaps, until our next deep dive.